Oops. Fiddles. Good morning. I see someone popped in here. Thank you for joining me. I'm going to share a couple cards with you today, and then we're going to make a fun card together. And while you're waiting for us to get started, if you are feeling fancy, go ahead and tell me where you're watching from. Today we're going to be working with the Seascape bundle. So the Seascape bundle also includes these really cool dies. You have our seahorse and a koi or goldfish. It has a coral and then 2 smaller fish, which are really cool. And then you also have some fun stamps. So I actually saw a card idea that I wanted to recreate, but kind of in a different perspective. And then I just have a couple other cards to share. So I did go ahead and die cut. This one's got something on it. Die cut 2 of the diorama pieces in thick basic white. And I also have some clear embossing powder over here, and I'm going to be using my blender tools for this as well to kind of give you a little idea. I only have 3 because they still were on back order. I wasn't able to get them yet. Hi Donna, hi Jackie, hi Sherry. Hope you guys are doing well today. Thank you all so much for joining me. Before we start with that, in case you are unaware, the mini holiday catalog will be coming. I know it says July to December, but we had a little bit of a delay with some of the supplies, so it's actually going to be August 1st. And I can show you the cover and the back. There's some really fun stuff in here. I did get some stamp sets, so I could show you those, but I know a lot of times people have probably already seen so many unboxings. I think that can get to be a little bit old, I'm sure. But one other fun thing is Celebration will be starting August 3rd and runs through September 30th. And during that time, you can, with every $50 purchase, that is before tax and shipping, you'll earn some freebies. And I do have a couple of those to share with you. I'm just going to show you these only because they're really, really cute. This is one of the papers that you can get for free. So this is called Bedazzling, and it's a little bit deceiving. Heavyweight. It's kind of like a glitter paper, but you can see it is really super sparkly. It's got a thicker back and a thicker feel to it. So it's kind of like a glimmer paper, but with, I would say, more of a disco ball effect because the pieces are laid on there very specifically as opposed to the glitter paper where it's kind of clumpy. So it's really ridiculously sparkly. So that's one that's kind of fun. Another one that you can earn for free is Counting Sheep. And nice part, this is a rubber die, a red rubber die. The other cool part is with, I believe it is $100. I'm just going to verify just to make sure. Nope, actually it's 50 and 50. So you can get the sheep with 50. They also have a die set that goes with this for 50. So if you had a $100 order, you could get the sheep and the dies. And the coolest part about the sheep, just to tell you, it does die cut these 3 sheep, but it also has a barnyard fence feature. It has flags, balloons, clouds, a sunshine, and party hats. So this die would be cut out as well. So it's really, really cute. And I was actually tempted to get that, but I got 2 papers instead because I really like this one particular paper, which is the penguins and the polar bears. It's really, really, really cute. So this is also, there's actually a lot of papers in the Celebration pack. So make sure I'm telling you this correctly. I'm pretty sure this is right? I feel like I have to double check. Yes. So this is a 12 by 12 paper. And you have the penguin, the foxes, and the polar bears. And you do get 2 sheets of each. The other side are Christmas trees. This one is really super adorable. This would be great for a baby or kids card too. So it has some really nice flip sides. I also really like the fact that it's 12 by 12. So in case you haven't seen this, this one is really pretty. The stripes. You do a lot of really fun winter cards with this. And I like this one. This is really the nice part about the flip sides of these are they're really versatile for after if you don't end up using them all by then. And then of course the sledding and the snowmen. And then you have snowflakes. And last but not least, they're building a snowman, which is super adorable. And then dots. So I think it's a super versatile pack of paper. And again, this is free with a $50 purchase. There are several other DSPs in there, but again, I don't want to just go on and on about all this stuff because I'm sure you've seen some of it somewhere. And also one other thing I'll tell you, I do have a cold. I apologize if I sound snotty or if I end up coughing, which I'm sure is inevitable to happen. But somehow at the beach, I end up picking up some sort of a head cold. Yesterday, we took Christian to Diggerland for the day, which is in New Jersey. And it was so hot, we pretty much spent the entire time in the pool, which they put in a new pool feature. I shouldn't say a pool, a water park feature. It's really, really cool. So we did that yesterday. That was a lot of fun. Way deceiving in the cat. I know, isn't it? That's why I ordered it, Donna, only because it wasn't something I would have picked, but it was kind of hard to tell what it actually looked like, and I thought it'll be better if I just get it. Worst case, if I don't like it, I'll give it away, which quite honestly, I probably won't use it that much, but I do think it was, it's definitely different, and it also does have a really heavy weight to it. So one other thing I thought I would show you is Sweet Strawberry. So I borrowed this from my friend. I didn't own this, and I don't have the punch, but in case you missed it, this also coordinated with a free celebration stamp set back in the first celebration. So we're moving to 2, which I think is kind of nice instead of having 3. So Berry Blessings, which I kept because I really liked it. I love the font on this. My son loves blueberries. It's really great to make a summer card or also kind of a like a cheering someone up card because it's fruity. It's very neutral in, you can send it to any gender, any age, pretty much any person whatsoever. So you can kind of mix these two if you happen to still have this. So this was free with Celebration the first time. But again, Sweet Strawberry, you can actually purchase. This also does have a coordinating punch that goes with it. That was wildly popular because it went on back order, I think, at least twice. So what I did is I just used this to make my own DSP. And I kind of, if you can tell from this, I played around. This actually was 1/2 sheet of cardstock. So if you look at this, maybe it was this way. Yep, just like this. That looks about right. That's how the paper was stamped. And then I ended up cutting it up. I made one full-size card. And then I made, these actually aren't finished yet, but I kind of just did 2 layers. So I fooled around with doing Polished Pink, Magenta Madness, Flirty Flamingo, and Blushing Bride. Not Flirty Flamingo, I apologize. Melamambo and Blushing Bride. So I stamped all different things because you can tell, especially on this card, we have wildly different strawberries on here, which I'm just saying are different ripenesses. So I also added in, because I thought it was really fun, some blue. So this is actually Pacific Point. And then I used some Balmy Blue. I used Shaded Spruce and Granny Apple Green for the leaves. And then I went back and I used my black Stampin' Right marker. And I did just these little 3 dots. And it's very difficult to see. I did go in there as well and add, oh, this one here. I added some white gel pen dots just to kind of mix things up. Then after the fact, so this was like a very big step in progress, but just to show you, it was very fun to make because it was one of those things where I really wanted to make a card, but I had no idea what I wanted to do, and I hadn't made cards in a while. So I was just kind of playing around thinking, okay, let me just try, we'll see what this turns out to be, and it really ended up being much more fun. So this also, if you can tell with this paper, it kind of looks a little bit off-white. So what I did, I stamped all the strawberries. Then I stamped all the leaves. Then I stamped the flowers. Then I went back and I did the stems of the strawberry. I actually did those in soft succulent. They probably could be a little darker in my opinion, but they kind of blend in, which makes certain things pop and certain things not. And then I added in the black little trio dots, so I did that kind of all over. Then I added in some of the white gel pen dots. So if you don't have a gel pen, this one is a pretty good one. It's a Singo Uniball. But sometimes I do find if you have a really great white gel pen, please feel free to share it in the comments, because sometimes gel pens don't live up to be as great as you think they're going to, because they kind of can stop the ink flow. So I haven't found one yet that's a perfect gel pen. This one works great, but I won't say it's fabulous. It's not my favorite. I had one some time ago that just, I don't know if it's the ink that tends to dry up, which is unusual because it is pigment ink. So one other thing you want to keep in mind is the fact that this does take a little bit to dry, so it will smudge. So you want to make sure that you do this and let it set. So I did the white trio dots as well. I kind of put a couple of them on the strawberries in various places. And then afterwards, it still felt like it needed something. So I already had this filled. Oh, where is it? It's around here somewhere. Hang on one sec. I know I have it. So I already had this filled from some time ago. This was, and honestly, I cannot remember. I think it is Garden Green, but I can't remember. I had some shimmer paint and alcohol, and I feel like I put a drop of Garden Green re-inker. So essentially, you'll just drop one dropper into this, and then you shake it up. So this one is one that's kind of been there for a while, and I feel bad throwing it away. So what I did was I went from really high up, and I spritzed the whole thing. So it took away a lot of the really bright white, and it kind of gave it a softer background. So I spritzed the whole thing. And then if that wasn't good enough, the other thing I did afterwards is I took my black marker, and I flicked. So you can see there's some splattering of black. And actually, I didn't do that with, did I do it with black? No, I didn't. I'm fibbing. I did it with my Pacific Point marker, because you can see that it's blue. So I flicked that just to kind of give a little bit of variances. And finally, again, this was a lot of steps. I was just adding things and playing. I went in with Wink of Stella on the leaves only. So it just is on the leaves. I didn't do the strawberries, but I did it on every single one. And then I cut the paper. So I cut this one in half. So this is 3 3/4 by 5. These two, I believe, let me tell you, I think they were 3 by 4. No, 2 3/4. I bet it was by 3 3/4. Yeah, 2 3/4 by 4 1/2. So I just cut these other two. So this is the other half of that. And then I layered them onto some complementary colors. For some of them, I added in the Valentines. I know these, you guys probably remember these from the Valentines. These were the From My Heart Faceted Gems, which, in case, I'm just doing this as a recap, sometimes you not know how to do these, because I don't know if they're supposed to go the shiny side up or the shiny side down. So I kind of did half and half. So I put some of these on. And then for other ones, what was the other thing I did? I put on some sequins. These were from that multiple sequin pack that we have that came out last Christmas. So I put some of the silver on, and you can see them here, silver, and then there's some of the white, which are kind of all in the same pack, and just jazz it up. So I was trying to just use stuff that I had left over. And then for two of them, you know, I used my absolute favorite, that metallic mesh ribbon, and I just tied it underneath. So these still need to be layered, both of these, onto some sort of a card, which I could put this on a base, or I could make it a slimmer card. And then this one, I just decided to go with Granny Apple and Polished Pink. So I used just different things. I have so many sequins around. I just added some different stuff to different ones. And I do think they turned out really fun. So that was just a little venture in DSP that I did. Make your own DSP. You know, guys know, if you've watched me before, you know how much I love to do that. So those were fun. I just have to finish these two cards. And then another card that I created, which this one, Path to Greatness. I thought this was a super fun stamp set because I love this cathedral look. If anyone has ever read The Pillars of the Earth, I love that book. It's a huge book, but it was really, really good. I read it some time ago. And when I saw this in the catalog, it reminded me of that. They have a great sample with this, so I kind of cased that to a degree. So this is the card I came up with. And what I did is I stamped the brick pattern. This is in the first generation of cinnamon cider ink. And then I had stamped off for this There's 3 that kind of go across like tic-tac-toe. And then what I did from there is I used my blender brushes and I added in balmy blue. And then I went back and added in some of the cinnamon cider. And I actually ran this through, and I should say this, I ran this through the Old World paper folder, and then I did the inking because you can see it picked up different spots of it. Then what I did is I took my bone folder and I went on the edge and kind of roughed up the edges and roughed up the corners here so it would look like old paper. And I kind of thought it needed a little bit of something with the ribbon. This might not be your favorite card. It's kind of still a little bit unusual to me. I don't really know if I love it or if it's just something different. But I used the soft succulent ribbon. So believe it or not, this is green, even though I have everything kind of with blue. And I ran this behind. I just put a piece of the Stampin' Seal Plus behind and I wrapped it around. And then these are actually die cut, which I think of this as a very often forgot die set, the ornate frames. This was from a Halloween set last year. So I actually did this one with the brushed copper DSP. Not DSP, brushed copper cardstock. That's what this backing is. And then I die cut this with vanilla. And again, I did do this on a vanilla base. So it's not on white, it's on vanilla. And then I just I stamped this in early espresso, and then I just slightly sponged the edges of it. And then the piece that's behind, so this is, I did this before I cut it, which sometimes I do that, and I don't really like trimming the edges because I kind of already made it the way I made it. I probably would have cut it down to 3 3/4 by 5, but it was already cut at 4 by 5 1/4. So the piece behind I did at 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. So it would have a little really thin border. And then I based it onto cinnamon cider. And then on the inside, I thought this was kind of fun just to use a different piece. So what I did is I actually put this on a stamp, but I only inked the top part. And then I stamped here and I stamped here on vanilla, and then I just went across the center and just did a little bit of light sponging. So I thought this was pretty fun. It was a different card. I think it definitely displays a nice way to use both sets, but maybe in an unusual manner, especially with the Cathedral portion. But I will tell you one other thing. I love the bricks, I love the Cathedral, but I really love the sentiments. That's why I actually bought this stamp set, which is crazy to buy it just for the sentiments. But anyway, so there's that one. And again, the ornate frames, these are still available. They don't currently have a stamp set that goes with them, so I'm kind of hoping they stay. But the cool part, in case you haven't seen this, so these do layer together. So you have these pieces that layer, and then also you have this square one that layers. So you have that and that, which go together. But I think one of the most versatile ones, which is really unusual, is this piece, which you're supposed to technically use this way. And I don't think I have that card handy. I actually did one where it was down at the bottom, so straight across the top and then at the bottom. And I think it turned out really, really nice. So in case you're looking for something different, maybe to border your sentiment or something like that, this is a really versatile die set. I like it a lot. So this is one that I've been keeping handy. So those are my pre-share samples today. What we're going to do is we're going to work with this combo here. So Seascape. And again, I did buy these after the fact. I think I told you guys that I wish I would have just done what I normally do and buy them together but I was like, I'm not going to use that fish. The coral was neat, but I'm not going to use it. And look, I've used it now so many times. So I am also matching this up with the Diorama Dies. So I have another card that I want to create with this, but this one's kind of just one in the meantime. So I did, and I'm going to work on this before I do it because I think this is one where I'm going to have to actually practice before I put it together. But I cut all different layers and all different sizes. I pretty much did every one, I think, except for the very smallest one, in shades of blues and greens. So Pool Party, Coastal Cabana, Balmy Blue, Bermuda Bay, Misty Moonlight, and Night of Navy. So I did these. I'm going to put this together eventually, but this is one again, then I'm going to have to practice a little bit. So I die cut 2 of these for what we're going to do with our card today, and I'm going to show you what we're going to do. We're going to go with the same theme, though. Coastal Cabana, Bermuda Bay, and maybe Pool Party. So let me grab those papers. actually saw this idea, a similar idea, I shouldn't say, not the exact idea. I saw a similar idea on a card that Rachthestamper created, and I thought it was a really cool idea. Let me see if this one has a piece in here. Yep, perfect. And then we'll use the pool party for our background. But I'm actually going to take the inside a step farther from what I saw. So hopefully that makes sense. So I have a full sheet of pool party. I want to make sure this is cut correctly. And then these two are going to layer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these together, and this is also a great tip. Rachel gave this tip as well, and I'm going to tell you also. When you die cut these, sometimes it can be kind of hard, and I'll show you why. Because you don't really exactly know which layer do you want to go on the, do you want it to be smaller? Because then you can't see anything. So you remember when you're doing this, if you're doing it as layers, you want your very smallest die cut to be on the inside of the card. And sometimes it helps to see them all layered together, and they don't have to line up. You can kind of switch them around. The other thing that can be a little bit misleading about this is depending on where you put this on your die, or I'm sorry, on your paper. So when you're cutting this, if you put it this way, or maybe you move it this way, they're not really going to line up the same. So my suggestion is to start with all of the paper the exact same size. So if you're going to start with 4 by 5 1/4 or 4.5 by, I'm sorry, not 4.5, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, that you keep all of them the same. So you can see these are all the same size, because lining them up different sizes underneath is really, really difficult. So again, these are the same size. I believe these are 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Yep, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. This is going to be our frontmost piece. And I'm not going to go with the biggest one. I'm going to go with the second. So we're going to have that. Then we're going to have the second. And you don't have to have them the same. Again, they're going to look a little bit different. And then we're even going to do one for this one. And I think I'm going to go, no, I'm just going to go down one. We're going to go to this. So I'm going to die cut all of these, and then we will do our stamping. And hopefully all this will make sense once we get started. So this is probably the longest process. Again, this isn't something that I have a sample for, so thank you for sticking with me. I know sometimes some people do everything where they have their samples made ahead of time. I'm kind of a create on the fly at the seat of my pants kind of person. So I'm going to do 2 of these at once. I'm just going to turn this sideways. So thanks for joining me. I'm trying to just center it in the paper. That's about the best and most effort I'm putting into this. So I'm just going to put these both in, and I'm going to die cut both of these just like so. So I hope everyone is doing well. Hi, Carol. I'm glad you caught me live. One other thing you can do, you can also save these inside pieces for something else. So I'm just going to set these on the side. So this is going to be our frontmost piece. I probably could have done one a little bit smaller, but this will work. This is going to be our second layer. So I'm just going to set this on the side so you can see what it's going to look like here with the different layers. And then finally, the only thing I have to do with this one first is score it. So just give me one quick second. Forgot about that. And I want to make sure this is actually 4 1/4. It is good. Remove my cutting blade. So I'm just going to score this at 5 1/2. And I'm going to kind of line this up to cut a hole through. So let's see. Again, just slightly centering it. Doesn't have to be perfect. Okay. So there's that. So if you want to check out Rachthestamper's, I'm not sure how recently she did it, but she did hers in Evening Evergreen and Soft Succulent, which might seem a little unusual for fish, but it kind of worked out really cool. So you can see I have my score line, so this is going to be how they line up. And you might have to rotate some of them depending on what shows through. And you could put some of these up on dimensionals if you wanted to. So we're going to go with that. Looks pretty good. And again, this is my first go at this, so it may end up better the more times around you go. Oh, one other thing I wanted to do. I'm going to die cut this, and I'm going to die cut a few fish. And what else do we have here? We have these, just those. We're going to stamp this. So I'm going to do, I have my coral, and I have this on the side because I knew I wanted to use it. Oh, you know what? Maybe I cut it down. I did cut it down. Here it is. So I have my rainbow glimmer paper, which makes really, really fun fish. You could also use this for your coral if you wanted to. So I'm going to do a piece of coral. And then I'm just going to do, I probably will run the fish through a couple times. So I'm going to do the fish. Oops. Forgot one. Fish and the coral. Nice part about the fish is you can cut two at once because it'll cut both of them. So I'm going to put these through, and then I'm going to run the fish through, I think once or twice more. Oh, one other thing I should tell you when you're doing this. The way I'm cutting this glimmer paper, it's better if you actually flip it over. Since I have mine this way now, I'm not going to change it, but I'm going to show you on the second set. It's better if you flip it over. It cuts a little bit easier. So with mine, I'm going to go back and forth. But if you were to cut it with the white face up, so this should be, okay, there's one, and, oops, two. So we'll do this way on the second one. And I'm going to move it down to the bottom. So if you actually cut it this way, it cuts through better the first time. You only should have to do one pass. So here is our coral. Make sure this cut all the way, which will give a nice bright pop. So I'm going to go through again with the fish. So I have the fish at the bottom, and then I'm going to do the fish up here once more. Maybe like the pink or something. So face, if you have your glimmer paper face down, it can cut through the back of the paper a little bit easier. Only thing that you have to keep in mind, and I don't really know if this is truly matters that much, but your paper, it will be backwards. So sometimes it can depress the glimmer just a little bit. So if that bothers you, you can certainly cut it the other way. It really is just personal preference. And I'm going to do one more fish. I'm going to do these kind of here. It looks pretty good. My friend is banging on the door. He was out there barking. Okay. In case I haven't seen some of you in a while, we did rescue a puppy. Actually, it's been 6 weeks ago today. He's been with us for 6 weeks. So there are those two dies. I'm going to keep them there so I don't forget. And then I'm just going to pop this glimmer paper. You could use it for obviously many different things. In case you missed this a while ago, I did do the goldfish, which was really cute, or the koi, I don't, whatever it is you want to call them. That was a really fun one. All right, so I have my fish. I have my coral piece. The only other thing now we have to do is some stamping. So here's what I'm going to do. We're going to do the card stamping first. So I'm just going to stamp the coral, and I'm going to do it in the same color. So Coastal Cabana. That way it doesn't detract too much. All right, and I'm going to grab my little scrap piece here for a minute. And I'm just kind of making this random. Doesn't have to be perfect. Doesn't really even need to be on the whole thing because it may or may not really show up depending on how we line these up. So it really is just up to you. So there's that layer. Then I'm going to use my Bermuda Bay. I'm going to keep that out just in case. Bermuda Bay. And I'm going to do the fish, just the little fish and the bubbles. So we have those. Fish and bubbles. All right, so I'm going to just make sure how I want to layer this together. Like that. Yeah, because that's entirely too matchy. You could even, if you wanted to, depending, it's going to have the rough edge. You could flip it over, but I think we're going to go this way. So I'm going to put some fish going just straight across. And then I'm just going to add in some bubbles. Kind of add these however you want all over. Just turning it slightly when I add them. Okay, I think that's good. All right, so I want this. I'm letting these two dry, so these are just going to get layered on top, okay? So, last but not least, now I'm going to go ahead and grab, oops, let me pull this out of here gently, the pool party. So, what we're going to do with this, and I'm just going to line this up to see which one I want to use, if I want the larger or the smaller. All right, so we have, and actually we could even add a few of these. I'm just going to fold this at my score line. I want to make sure it's lined up pretty well. If you guys can't tell already, you know I love ocean things, and these sort of stamp sets with any kind of an ocean theme are always my favorite. No matter which one it is, I think I will probably always buy something because I love, love, love these. Just add a few of these residual ink fish here. You're not going to see that much in the background, but so what you're going to do is you're going to layer kind of these together. You might see a little bit of something. And then what we're going to do is we're actually going to decorate this piece and we're going to put it on the inside. So I'm trying to figure, do I want the smaller one? Because this kind of fits in here just like so. Granted, it's going to be underneath. Let me pull this so it doesn't. So it's going to be underneath. So would we want smaller or do we want larger? Because what we're going to do is we're going to decorate this and we're going to put our sentiment and then we're going to add something else to it. So I think larger would look better. So I'm going to go with larger. And what we're going to do is we're going to stamp this in the meantime. One other thing I want to get is I think I want my Mango Melody because I want a pop of, hopefully this is going to work. Let's see, because this stamp is a little bit weird. So I'm going to clean off my fish. And we're going to even clean off our bubbles. I'm just going to clean my coral while I have it, just in case I decide to use this, so they will all be ready. Okay. So what I'm going to do is stamp the fish. Let's see if this looks okay. This, I don't know if you guys have this mango. It's a little bit weird the way it re-inks, but sometimes it still looks okay. So I'm going to do my fish. Yeah, that one didn't ink so well. And since that one didn't, what I'm going to do is grab my blender pen. I'm just making sure it's clean. I'm just going to dip a little bit, and I'm just going to fill in the orange on this fish here. So he doesn't really have as white of an eye. You could technically give him a black dot for eye if you wanted to. I'm just going to do one more. Whoops, bubbles, wrong thing. I'm going to do one lighter. Okay, and same thing. I'm just going to use my marker and just fill in a little bit. Okay, so there is that. Put this away. You could also do this with yellow if you wanted to. Kind of just depends. And I have to clean this off since I dipped that in orange, because just because the fish are orange does not mean they have orange bubbles. There we go. Okay. Give me one sec. Somehow this fell off here and it smudged. You know, I don't have my label on the back, so probably should have done that. All right, what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to give these really light pool party bubbles. So I'm going to ink them, but I'm going to stamp them off before I fill them in. Okay, there are those. And I want to add just still a little something else. And I want to do it in, pardon me for this flipping, Pacific Point, because Pacific Point and the Mango Melody really go nicely together. I'm just looking for something else I could add. What I might do is, I don't know how silly this is going to look, but I'm going to try it. I'm just going to add a little bit of coral and a stamped off Pacific Point. Okay, that looks good. And one more, I'm going to do Granny Apple for the kelp or seaweed, whatever we want to call it. I'm going to stamp this off though, because it can be really dark. And I want it to be that second generation. Oh, there's something stuck on there. Let's try that again. Okay, so stamped off. And because they can be behind it, do the same over here. There we go. Make it look longer. Okay, so one other thing. You kind of have to figure out, where are you going to put our sentiment on here or are we not? But in the meantime, I'm going to dry this. So I'm just going to dry it on high just for a second over here, just to get these inks to dry. That way, the next step, nothing bleeds. Okay. So now I'm going to take my blender brush and I'm going to go with Pool Party, because that is kind of the lightest. You could probably use Coastal Cabana too. And I'm going to just ink this up slightly. And just bring a little bit of color to this. So it's not white, it's kind of more like a sea background. Not really a lot. I'm going to do a little bit more at the top just because, just to give a little bit of depth to it. So there, that looks pretty good. So we're going to leave that. All right, so last but not least, I think I'm going to stamp my sentiment, and I don't really know what kind of card this necessarily needs to be. We could certainly use the thank you because it's a pretty card. So I'm just going to go with the thank you, and also because it's smaller, and I really haven't made one, so I don't really know what I want it to look like yet. All right, so we have that. Because it is a very detailed script, I'm going to use the VersaFine, which is not an ink that Stampin' Up! Carries. But you can find this at pretty much any big box store. Or on Amazon. I do have a link on my blog. So this is a pigment ink, so it does take a little bit to dry. So I'm just going to dry it for a second, because I don't want it to smudge for our final act here. So I'm just making sure the whole thing is dry. Okay, so there's that. All right, so we have all of these. The only other thing we need, and I'm going to move this out of the way so I don't make a mistake. And now I'm going to grab my Versamark, okay? So this is going to be the last time I use this paper because I'm going to kind of ink it all up. So I have clear embossing powder, I'm going to go ahead and turn my heat tool on in the background so it's super hot. And I'm going to ink the entire thing with Versamark, and then I'm going to clear emboss it, and I think I'm going to do it twice. The more you do it, the more depth you get to it. So what I want to have is that this part kind of looks like water. So just stamping the Versamark all around. Then I'm going to put this on my coffee filter and sprinkle the clear embossing powder. This one's almost done. All over. Just give it a tap from the back. Now, before I heat it, I'm going to pour this back into my container, because when I'm finished, I'm going to do the same thing again, but I'm going to just dip it directly because it's still going to be hot. So I'm going to go ahead very carefully. I'm actually going to use my reverse tweezers to hold this, and I'm going to heat this whole thing, and it's going to go from powdery to shiny, and that's how you know it's set. Now, if you're not fast enough to heat it and re-pour, you can always just add another layer of Versamark. And redo it that way, which I may end up doing because it is heating a little bit weirdly. Probably because I'm using some powder that's a little bit older and some powder that's a little bit newer. All right, so I'm gonna turn that off for a second, and I'll show you what I meant when we do the next layer. We'll do 3 layers. So what I'm gonna do is just make sure this is cool first. It does take a second to cool down. So I'm gonna take my Versamark again, and I'm just inking directly on here. You can do this as many times as you like, and it'll give you really a heavy layer, which kind of looks really cool. So same thing, just sprinkling again. And then this time I'll show you what I mean with the picking it up. Just tapping the excess. I'm going to pour this back. Same thing, and I'm going to move this to a different spot and heat it this time. And it typically melts a lot faster depending on how many layers you have on. And also depending on if you preheat your heat tool. And you just want to keep moving it around. Kind of tilt it in the light to see if you have or haven't gotten the whole thing. So I'm just going to heat this last bit here. Then I'm going to dump, and it pretty much sticks to where you embossed. I'm going to move to just a different spot. All right, this will be my final. So I'm going to move this off to the side and just heat it the last time. Okay, so I definitely want to give this a second to dry, but you can see what it looks like. It's a clearly smooth piece. It almost has a mirror-like reflection once you add more than one layer. You can see that on there. But definitely make sure it dries, because I will tell you that getting that on your fingers does not feel good. These, be really careful. You can wipe them off after the fact, but please make sure they cool down because they are screaming hot. So I'm just going to dump this back in. And this one's empty. I can recycle that. I'll say I could use it for something, but it'll probably sit there forever and I'll never use it. So all we're going to do now, you can see our layer. It's really thick. And it's cool now. So it's thick and it's super shiny, which is really neat. Okay, so all we're going to do now is just layer everything together. So I'm just going to move a couple of these things out of the way. So I'm going to make sure that this, where is it? Here. Move this up. And I'm going to do one thing really quickly because I feel like I have some grit here. I'm just going to wipe this with my microfiber cloth. All right, and then we have all of our layers to assemble along with our little fish and our coral. So if you are coming in late, you can always go back once this video ends and rewatch the replay. So I'm just going to put this on the inside. Just kind of deciding where it needs to go. It doesn't really have to be centered that you can see the thank you. And remember, this may cover some of that up anyway. Let's see, I think we went this way. And then we went this way. Yeah, that looks good. All right, so I am going to put this down with some heavy duty adhesive. I'm going to use Stampin' Seal Plus because it has been heated a little bit. You could certainly heat the back side if you want to a little bit to flatten it out. I would be hesitant to run it through the die cutting machine just because of the layers of embossing powder on there. I wouldn't want it to crack. So I'm just going to kind of pick a spot, make sure my thank you is at least somewhat straight, and press it down. All right, so there is that. I'm just going to go from the other side and just give this a nice press. Okay. And then I'm going to put, let me make sure this is lining up the way I wanted it to. Here and here. Nope, that's wrong. Here and here. All right, so I'm going to put, trying to make sure this is lining correctly. I'm going to put adhesive on the back of this. So you could do liquid adhesive. I am not a fan of our new tape runner. I really like the liquid adhesive. The only one I like is this Stampin' Seal Plus version because it seems to have a little bit more heft to it. But personally, I usually am one that uses, whoops, liquid glue. I know this might be a little tape heavy for some people, but what I'm gonna do with this is just kind of lining it up on the half line, or the fold, I should say, in the cardstock. And yeah, there is just the teeniest bit of hangover here, which I could trim this off after the fact. So there's that one. Now this one I'm actually going to put on with some dimensionals just for something added to it. But I also want to add in my coral piece. You can add that there. You could put some of your fish on the inside or have them going a different direction or tuck them. So let me just take one little peek. I'm going to put dimensionals on the back of this in the meantime. You could do dimensionals. You could do the strips if you wanted to. You could even go so far as to die cut a piece of the foam and put that on. The only thing is you're going to want to make sure you line it up correctly. And one other thing to keep in mind is that you don't want to mix the foam and the dimensionals or the foam and the strips because they are not the same height. So I know this looks like a lot, but I don't just want to make sure it stays. Okay, so that looks good. So I'll pull these off in a second. In the meantime, I'm going to grab some mini glue dots and we'll put a fish or two on. I'm just going to anchor a couple of these on just slightly because I don't want to push them too hard and then I end up needing to move them. So let me just kind of go like so. This one has a weird eye dot. Oh, I didn't even pick that glue dot up. That's why it wasn't sticking. All right, I think, is that it? I probably should have cut more. Nope, there's another one. I was going to say, I thought I had 2 more. So I'm going to save these, potentially one for the inside. I know there's an, oh, here it is, another one around here somewhere. And I want to see what these look like. This, oops, just pop that off. This, we might move these. Let's stick him here for a second. Oh, goodness. Well, okay. Note to self, be careful when you die cut them the opposite way. Sometimes they get a little rippy. So keep that in mind. Again, that's why I try to do these so you guys know ahead of time. I just want to see what this looks like. It'd be better over here. I think I'm going to offset it over here instead. So I'm just going to put a couple of glue dots on the back of this coral piece. And see. Let's stick this in here. Might have to trim. Just going to trim off this one little snippy piece here, just so it doesn't stick out the bottom. Not going to see it anyway, so it's not going to really matter. And I'm going to put just a couple more glue dots, because again, this is going to be hidden, so it won't be that you're going to see these glue dots, really. The glimmer paper does a good job of hiding them behind there as well. So let's do that. Now I'm just going to pop all these dudes off. With one other thing just to mention with these, because sometimes, oops, they can be a little bit difficult to place. If you have trouble with lining things up once you have put dimensionals on them, you can put a tiny dot of liquid glue and it will just give you a little bit of maneuverability so you won't put it on in the wrong spot. So just to show you what I mean. I mean, when I say little, I mean just a little dab. And what it does is it helps that if you need to just slightly adjust this, it gives you a little bit of give. So I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to open this up before I put it on. So I have, in case you missed that, a little teeny dot. So I'm going to put this right here. Like that. Okay, and then we still have our couple other. I'm going to see where I want. Put one of these out here. Oh, this is the one I took off. So I want to make sure I put a good amount of glue dots so it will stay. Could also put a tiny, a mini dimensional underneath. I'm going to put it right under this part here. And I'm kind of tucking that in under there. I want it to hold his face in place. And you really can't see it where it is under there. So there's that. And let's put one here. I'm actually going to put 2 on since this one was a little bit fragile. And one up here. These do have a lot of cutting in them from the die, so they can be a little bit delicate. So just keep that in mind. All right, let me close this, and I'll show you guys what we finished with. And just press those. Granted, you don't have a whole lot of space. You could also put something on the back if you wanted to. And that little overhang there is so slim on both of these, I'm not even going to really worry about it. So that was a fun take. Again, Rachthestamper created a really, really cute version of this. It was in soft succulent and evening evergreen, but I thought it'd be really cool to add that clear emboss layer in there so you have that shiny component to it. And then I think the rainbow glimmer paper is really fun to be able to add some multicolored fish without any effort whatsoever. So I think it's really cute. It's a little teeny bit thick. And again, if it bothers you, because this is a darker colored cardstock, you could totally have used the black dimensionals. That way you don't see the white in there, so it would give a little bit more of a dark look to it. But I think the key here is a couple things. First of all, is when you line these up, make sure you try them out again, might be helpful to cut a bunch of different ones out before you put it together. The other key is to make sure that all of your layers, so these 3 layers underneath, are all the same size to start with, and we're just cut our holes out of. So these are the leftover pieces, and you can kind of see how they line up. Now, one other thing that's a little bit funny is when you get into these layers on this, and I want to show you in case you may not have realized this because I didn't, they don't all match up exactly. So let me show you what I mean. So these 3 are like a mirror image. And then when you get into these center 2, are like a mirror image, but these here are not the same. So you can see they kind of have 2 that are the same, and then these 2 that are very similar. So they're not going to line up 100% exactly. So really neat though. I think the layering it gives to it is really cool. Even if you did something like a layer like this with 3 things together, it's going to give you a really different layer, even if you put them directly together. So I've been keeping all of these. I just have my little sleeves here that I keep them in, and I put all of them in the back because I did these with something else earlier. So I definitely will finish this other card that I wanted to share with you guys, but I want to be able to make one first, so because I know that's going to take a little bit more effort to be able to create it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this very fun card today. Again, the glimmer paper, the rainbow glimmer paper, made it much easier to use. And I think the cool part about that, granted mine is cut down to 6x6, so you can't really see the coolness of the whole thing because it is a 12x12 paper. So you will actually have the yellow to orange to pink. Let me scoot this over. And then it goes to the purple, blue, green. So this is what a 12x12 sheet looks like. It is a full piece, and you have the whole gradient of color, which I really like. But I think I find that when I've been cutting things up into 12x12 that I've actually been using them, I'm sorry, into 6x6, I've been using them more. So you can see just the variance when I cut this guy out. This one actually is on the adhesive sheet, which is why it has the white backing, so it'll make it super easy to adhere him to something. Probably could have gone in there too, but I think that would have just been a little bit much. So thank you guys so much for joining me today. Again, we used the Seascape, and we used the layering diorama dies, and then we also used, hold on, they're under here, the coordinating dies. We used the coral and the fish, which I like the fact that you can cut 2 of those out at once. They're really fun. I did a video on this a couple weeks ago on my Facebook page, which if you subscribe to me here on YouTube, I load pretty much everything I do. So thank you guys very much for watching me today. I'll bring these other couple in that we made. This one was from the other day, and then these were the DIY designer series paper with the sweet strawberry. And again, if you still have your celebration berry blessings, you could make one. You could add in some blueberries, some raspberries, lots of different choices there. Thank you guys so much for joining me as always. If you would like to buy any of these supplies to make these cards today, excuse me, you can shop in my online store 24/7, Rachthestamper.stampinup.net. All of the dimensions will be on my blog later today, which if you don't follow me there, you can find me at rachthestamper.com. If you haven't already, I would love for you to click the subscribe button, turn on the notifications so the next time I go live, you will get a notification that I am live, and I would truly love it if you give me a thumbs up. That is huge because it will help me to be seen. Leave a comment. Thank you guys so much. I'm going to check back through the comments, just wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything. Could be a pond. That's another great idea. Could also be a pond. Super idea. And let's see. Liz O'Connor. Is that my neighbor, Liz? If that was you watching, thank you. I miss you. I hope you're doing well. I know sometimes with the autofocus, which I usually turn mine off because when it goes in and out, that drives me bananas. So I try to turn that off. So hopefully take you back to the beach. Yeah, Kathy, you had a great vacation there. All right. Well, I thank you guys for joining me. I'm not sure when I'm going to go live again. It won't be tomorrow, but it'll be sometime coming up this week. So make sure you stay tuned. I try to give a day's notice on my Facebook page. If you aren't following me there, you can find me at Rachthestamper on Facebook. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your weekend. You get out to enjoy some sunshine and some fresh air. It is very hot and humid here in the Mid-Atlantic. I think we're going to be at 107 heat index today, which thankfully we have a pool, so I am certainly not complaining. But if you are somewhere hot, I hope you find somewhere to cool off. Thank you guys so much for joining me, and I'll see you again real soon.